And that was in D.C. less than 30 minutes ago as a fifth night of protest rages on across the country. People demanding justice for the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis, saying they are also demonstrating against systemic racism. Right now, there are curfews in effect for about a dozen U.S. cities because of these protests. Demonstrations happening in Atlanta, Los Angeles, Chicago, and right here in the nation's capital.
People jumped on the hoods of 3 U.S. Secret Service vehicles, smashing windows, flattening tires, plus spray painting anti-Trump and police rhetoric. Officers with plastic shields and wooden batons forced protesters back. All to keep a wider perimeter around the White House grounds.
Well, somebody help them.
Several protesters washed out their eyes.
Are you okay? Do you need a spray?
Seemingly from some sort of chemical that was fired into the crowd. Today's protest started around 2:30 beside the U.S. Capitol reflecting pool. The crowd, easily topping 1,000, spoke their minds without turning to vandalism. During a press conference this afternoon, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser stated violence is not the answer.
I call upon our city and our nation to exercise great restraint, even while the president tries to divide us.
We got a building that appears to be under construction on fire to the right. To my left, towards the White House, things are getting worse and worse with each passing moment that goes by as far as this confrontation. You can see this fire right here. This looks pretty serious.
I tried to go in there to see real quick if there was a fire extinguisher. I called 911 and told them to get here now. This is, again, that professional office building. Sir, do you have any idea what happened here? I mean, presume an arson.
They just started vandalizing.
And you're a security guard at this building. What do you make of this, sir?
Chaos. I get the bigger purpose, like what's going on, but it's too much, man. It's too much.
How many times are you guys gonna beat us, kill us like we're not like you, like I'm not like her? We have the same organs, we have the same eyes, we have the same nose. We are one people. All we want is justice. We just want to wake up in the morning and not worry about getting killed. Every day, African Americans are killed in this country, and these police officers get away with it. And is that justice? Is that fair? Is that freedom? Is this the country that we live in?
I am also taking swift and decisive action to protect our great capital, Washington, D.C. What happened in this city last night was a total disgrace. As we speak, I am dispatching thousands and thousands of heavily armed soldiers, military personnel, and law enforcement officers to stop the rioting, looting, vandalism, assaults, and the wanton destruction of property. We are putting everybody on warning. Our 7 o'clock curfew will be strictly enforced.
And with that, President Trump just declaring that there is going to be a much swifter action taken to clean up the streets, clear the streets of not necessarily the protesters, but some of the violence that we have seen afterwards with the looting and the arson and the destruction.
And they're advancing again. And now they're...
Gosh.
That's a photographer.
What's going on now?
A member of the press.
Now there's just a lot of violence erupting. Ben, back up, back up. All right, I don't know. Tear gas everywhere. We're going to get off to the side here.
Let's listen in. And I'm not sure if this was a photo op or this was just a stroll. I mean, I'm not sure what was going on here. But if Tom Rousey can hear us and he's got his mic open, maybe we could just listen. We can just listen to him for a second. And, hold on.
We have the greatest country in the world. Thank you very much, everybody. We're going to keep it nice and safe.
We don't care about no curfew. We don't care about none of that. We don't care what they have to say. They kill us, nothing's done. People show with AR-15s, begging for a haircut, begging for stores to be open. But when we come out here and protest because a white man put his knee down on a black man and killed him in cold blood, and we come out here to protest that, This is what happens. That's why we out here. We're not going nowhere at all. We here. We here for as long as we can. We not running. We done. Tired of running.
Tonight here at ABC 7, we want to begin an open conversation about this time for change in our country.
Can't necessarily change the hearts of every police officer in the police department, but you can change their actions and their behavior by strong leadership at the top.
What we're seeing now is years of frustration and pain. We reached a tipping point that I think, in all honesty, was helped by the COVID crisis.
What gets captured on those cell phone videos, what gets captured on body cameras, what gets captured on in-car cameras is the fulcrum with which we can change the notion that this is just another in a series of isolated events.
Students at the law school, one of the things that they are trained to understand, one of the things that they come to us understanding is that law has the power to transform, and that they have got to take that degree and take that skill and take that knowledge and ensure that it moves us in the right direction.
This is indeed the most difficult time I've seen in my lifetime.
Pro football in Washington will have a new name. What will it be? We still don't know.
2020, I think it's been the year of change. It's been the year of reckoning, and this was bound to happen.
Do you think this change is more about doing the right thing and a cultural shift within the NFL, or is this just about money?
I have to be candid. I think money pushed it over the finish line.
That's why, in part, there's so much confusion regarding this. At least to somebody like me, a historian, the polls, the logo that exists on the helmet, and then all these other Native Americans that have come out over the years saying that, anecdotally, that it's not offensive.
But it has proven, in fact, that using this racial slur does harm Native American children.
I'm sorry, just because it was fine 10 years ago, it was fine 20 years ago, it's not fine now.
Mike, you cover history. I lived it. I've lived through history. I'm a visual example how people make decisions on site based on the color of my skin.
This did not have to come down to a racial argument like this. I mean, all I was doing was making an observation.
It's not an argument, Mike.
About the origin
it's a fact
of the Redskins
name.
We came here to the city of Alexandria for a conversation about the past, the present, and the future.
Today, my grandson graduated from high school. What is the world going to look like for him?
And as Earl Cook searches for the answer to that question, he finds himself looking back to his own high school years at T.C. Williams.
I was a rising junior.
In 1971, he was a member of TC's newly integrated football team.
I don't care if you like each other or not, but you will respect each other.
A team whose story was told in the film Remember the Titans.
I come to win.
And whose coaches and players won a state championship and brought their community together during a time of intense racial divide.
Growing up in this city, I was such a beneficiary of civil rights activists.
Earl then went on to become the city's first African-American police chief, a job he held for 7 years until his retirement in 2016.
I'm told by society to be proud you're the first black one, which is automatically opposing the thought that compared to what? To a white standard?
Black Lives Matter! So when he talks about racism and watches protests now happening nationwide over the death of George Floyd, Earl once again finds himself looking back.
Regrets because I was in a position to affect change. I attempted to affect change. But in hindsight, I wasn't bold enough. I wasn't nearly bold enough.
As for the future, he believes the work ahead will be difficult.
What you really need is reform and reset police departments. We have not progressed to the point where we've changed our institutions. They are exactly at the place they were when I was a teenager.
But Earl has faith in the next generation.
The young people, like my grandson, is the answer.
And perhaps one day they too will be remembered as Titans.
And that's what gives me hope.
Heather Graff, ABC 7.
Please keep the windows closed at all times.
Numbers have a habit of telling misleading narratives.
Next patient, patient 2.
But not here.
Hi, good afternoon. Are you here for the coronavirus testing?
Not at Neighborhood Health, where the numbers tell a story of disproportionate suffering.
I had one patient who's in a closet for a week because that was the only way that she could isolate.
Neighborhood Health, the largest group of medical clinics in Northern Virginia, caters to the under and uninsured, primarily from immigrant communities.
98% of our patients are below the federal poverty level.
Please pull up to the last parking space in front of the number 1.
Soon after the COVID-19 pandemic hit, they opened 4 drive-through testing sites. As of mid-May, they've conducted more than 1,200 tests with a positive rate of 54%. Northern Virginia's positive rate is less than half at 25%. The rest of the state, only 10%. Take Virginia's largest county as an example. Latinos and Hispanics are 16% of the population in Fairfax County, but make up 45% of the county's COVID-19 cases.
It's life or death, and it's life or death not only for an individual, but for multiple members in the family.
In fact, 90% of this clinic's positives are Latino and Hispanic. Silsa Ortiz de Catalan just recovered from COVID-19.
And it wasn't just me, but also my children who got sick. We are 4 people who all live in one apartment, and we all were very sick.
The very people who clean your offices, ring up your groceries, and serve your food. Like 45-year-old Maria Cabrera Zayala, who worked at a now-closed restaurant.
I had a fever of 105 degrees and pain all over my body. I was like that for about a week.
This is Zayala fighting the virus, isolated to prevent spread. And this is when she found out that she had recovered, only to face a stifling reality.
I'm without work right now. I have an unemployment letter. I will go back to work on September 2nd, and I'm going to have to use my savings until then.
These are the types of jobs where you can't easily social distance.
Executive Director Dr. Bassam Khan says this crisis shows in disturbing detail the impact this infectious disease is having on America's working poor in the region.
I think what it does is that unmasks many of the underlying problems that we've seen in the first place.
But you can feel fear in people's voice. You can feel anxiety. Fear not only of getting coronavirus, but of losing their jobs, of losing their homes, of not having enough groceries.
So Neighborhood Health added another responsibility to their job description. They're partnering with United Community Food Pantry in Alexandria.
It could be vegetables, fruits.
Delivering hundreds of meals to people actively fighting the virus while isolating at home.
Word cannot express what they feel. They're so grateful.
Jose, who would only give his first name, was just cleared to return to work and thankful for food delivered to his door while battling the virus.
Impacts your ability to get income, and you're not able to leave, you're not able to go out and do the things that you would normally do, and so this has been a huge help to me and my family.
While we all want this viral fog clouding our lives to lift, this public health official is not so sure that we are ready to reopen.
Things are not getting better, things are getting worse.
The numbers that we're talking about ultimately are real people. They're real people in our communities. They're real people that we come into contact with, and importantly, we rely on.
I'm Jay Korf for ABC 7 News.
The numbers alone are astonishing.
You know, if Black Americans were dying at an equivalent rate as white Americans, what would that mean? And to date, it would mean 13,000 Black lives would have been spared.
Andy Egbert with American Public Media's Research Lab says that across the country, Black Americans are dying from coronavirus at twice the rate of whites, Latinos, and Asians.
And so those are, you know, mothers and fathers and grandparents and bus drivers, and, you know, it makes my heart ache.
But in the nation's capital, the disparity is much worse.
It was just astonishing to me.
I mean, sadly, the magnitude of the disparity is greater in DC than anywhere else.
While DC's population is 46% Black residents make up at least 75% of all coronavirus deaths. The DC Department of Health reports that at least 346 Black residents have lost their lives to COVID-19, compared to 53 whites.
So it's exceptional in a real negative way. It's something that we've seen over many weeks, so it's not kind of a hiccup in the data. It's a fairly, you know, durable pattern that we're seeing there.
The Nonpartisan Research Lab started crunching the numbers once the racial disparity started to appear early in the pandemic.
From the beginning of our reporting back, you know, less than 2 months ago, we had lost about 15,000 Americans to the virus. Now, as we all know, we've exceeded 100,000 lives lost. but the deep inequities, especially for Black Americans, have been there at every point, at every kind of mile marker. We've seen the same conclusion.
They also found the racial divide was not exclusive to big cities.
Because we also see Kansas right up there, which is not known for its cosmopolitan centers, right?
Egbert hopes that by tracking the localized impact of the pandemic, communities can better target their response.
Just across the river, it's almost the difference between life and death. More Black people have died in DC than in all of Virginia.
I think that is one of the most painful things about this, how localized the losses have been. I think it can be something that can help us, like give us something in our toolbox, right? So like, let's get, feet on the ground working in those communities.
So we're currently on Richmond Highway, right in the wonderful Mount Vernon community. When COVID hit, we thought food, we thought shelter, but there's so much underneath all of that. And something as simple as having clean clothes is so important. This is a new business on Route 1 who has realized that there's a need here in this community. And so they've teamed up with Young Highways to offer free washing and drying for the community.
You have 3 loads, okay, that you can wash for color in the big machine, and then you can wash 2 loads of whites in the smaller machine, okay?
When I got the phone call, I was like, yes, because we need this. It's really hard to manage with this pandemic. It's so different. It feels like a different world. Phew. Oh, you wouldn't believe it. Sometimes I have to laugh to keep from crying, okay? When your income is cut short by the pandemic, and you have to wash your clothes, you have to pay your rent, you have to pay your bills. Some of my bills are behind, but, I keep moving.
Everybody gather around Young Highway Fitness. Let's go. Let's go, let's go, let's go.
We're gonna do go-go Zumba with the kids. We have snacks and drinks to supply for the families while they're waiting for their clothes to wash and dry. We understand what you're going through. We're from the Route 1 corridor, and we just want to give back. And we're here from you, and we're not going anywhere. We're not going to just give you a free laundry wash and say, okay, take care. No. How else can we help support your family? How else can we help support you to be a better parent, to give your child more opportunities?
We need to help people feel human, feel like we care. Someone cares. We care. And so we're showing that by doing something that no one else is doing on Route 1. Across the highway from people who have so much money, and on the other side of the highway are people who are unemployed, seeing higher COVID rates than ever, need job assistance, need rental assistance, need food assistance, and it's just ridiculous. There were times when I was on welfare. There was times I was living in my grandmother's basement because we didn't have anywhere to go. No matter how life may take you into better places, don't forget the people that are in the situations that you came out of. And so that's my driving force. And so we're on our way to get Joseph so that he can wash the clothes of the family. This family has been waiting to get housing, and unfortunately, because the family is so large, that they have just had such a difficulty to find housing big enough for their entire family, and so they are now living out of a hotel.
But as you can see, it's hectic, but I'm just making the best of it, you know what I'm saying? That's all I can do.
They lose their jobs, their daughter gets shot, they get displaced, they basically got evicted. So here they are trying to figure out how to persevere in the midst of one thing after another after another.
just to feel loved by somebody else that's not even in our family, it's amazing.
Clean clothes ain't nothing like clean clothes, man. You know what I'm saying? When you get the opportunity to wash some clothes, I ain't not going to say no. You know, I got a huge family that I'm providing for, so Miss Yolanda came in my life, and there's more blessings to come, man.
Don't nobody want to put on the same dirty clothes. That means I'm still living in yesterday's sorrow.
Yeah.
I'm trying to live in today's love.
When you have fresh clothes, they might be old, but they clean. Come on, man, you good. It's cleansing. It's called a cleanse. I've been washing clothes for years, man. My mother taught me well, man.
But it just means a lot for me to be able to help someone breathe. This situation and this pandemic can be so suffocating, and one thing after another, and you could just feel so overwhelmed. To me, it means a lot that I just get to allow people to put a smile on their face, even if temporarily, because someone cared enough and loved on them enough to say, I see you, and I'm here to help you. There's a reason to keep going. There's a reason to not give up.
We don't want to be like them. Violence is all they know. We know peace. Be peaceful. Because at the end of the day, I care about you and all of your lives.
The significance of this venue is unprecedented. You can't go anywhere else in the world and replicate this.
The nation's capital is a place where influence is peddled and change settled, typically within corridors of power.
We all are striving for the same thing. We just want equality.
But when the world witnessed an unspeakable death, a rising tide of outrage born from generations of racial injustice
I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
stormed America's streets to secure a seat at history's table.
We're seeing people that are pissed off, that they don't have jobs, that the American dream has failed them, that they aren't where they should be.
Just the callousness at which this man his life was brought to an end. It was shocking. I think it shocked everyone, into this conversation, into this reality. And now everyone can agree. Maybe there is a devaluation of black lives in this country, and we need to look at that.
This broad campaign for equality includes an explosion of expression on wood, glass, walls, and pavement, coursing through Washington, D.C., breathing new life and new meaning into how we see and solve injustice.
Artists, we have such a unique voice. We have the ability to move people through word and image.
This movement's roots were planted in Lafayette Square, steps from the White House.
History is something you're a part of. It's nothing you plan for.
Here, protest signs, drawn, scratched, and scribbled, line trees, poles, and fences. For Yolanda Wells, horror and beauty sit side by side.
Even though it's a sad time for us, look at this. It is beautiful. All this art is beautiful. And it's causing everyone to come together. Yeah, it's a select few who do not see what's happening and the meaning behind it. But for the ones that do, it's a beautiful thing.
Right now, I'm just touching some things up. Color just tells the story, and it invokes so much, emotion.
Sonia Jones is among several artists working with the renowned Paints Institute, creating world-class murals.
Nina Simone said it's the responsibility of artists to reflect the times, and so I'm just happy to be able to be out here and do that. I am doing a portrait of a young man.
They started in Chinatown and Gallery Place, turning riot-proof slabs of plywood protecting businesses
I want to focus on like skin tone and his expression
into something extraordinary.
Part of his shirt is going to have part of the Black Panthers Party logo. Another one is going to be a fist because that's a trademark that I'm doing.
This transformation of motifs from war-zone wood to a landscape of promise was the brainchild of the downtown DC Business Improvement District, the Paints Institute, and the property owner.
The common theme is unity, togetherness, solidarity, and let's move forward.
Oxford Properties General Manager Josh Turnbull witnessed the power of public art here and wanted more.
I've got a building over at 16th and I Street, right in the heart of Black Lives Matter Plaza, and we need to do this there. By the next morning, we had the artists over here, and here we are with now an outdoor art gallery.
This location where we are right now is 916th Street, and the street has been renamed Black Lives Matter Plaza.
Different shades of brown to reflect brown people, Black people, so they can see themselves in a rainbow. We're painting history right here. My name is Moses Mozart Rivera, and we call this Brown Babes Are Magic.
Just trying to give it a little bit of life. Try to use the same tones in both hands to show that we are more equal than we are different. Together we rise. As artists, we want to be a part of change, and this is a critical time, and to not take part, I think, is irresponsible.
Everybody has a gift, everybody has a way that they can tap in to kind of bring about real change, and she's just trying to channel that inner energy to do that.
My name is Levi Robinson. This piece is called Black Lives Matter to a Medic.
When riot police cleared protesters on that now infamous afternoon, medics were stationed on this very spot, this very piece of plywood, their triage rundown.
Supply lists, first aid kits, dates and times of when protesters were marching. You know, that's why a lot of the wood is still exposed in the piece. I didn't want to paint over that, you know. I wanted to preserve it because I felt like it told their story. This is my way of marching, you know.
Our final stop, the entire block of 14th and V Streets, where Denver Terrence carefully, amid an ongoing construction project, built with dozens of volunteers, an ode to Black lives lost to racial injustice and police brutality. More than 100 names, some familiar, others not, including Terrence's uncle, Denver Smith, a college student gunned down during a peaceful protest at Southern University in 1972.
This wall is about information, it's about hope, but it's also about pain, and hopefully with acknowledging the pain, we can move towards some type of solution.
Hey Denver, can you give me some yellow?
It felt very heavy going down this mural, knowing that the police killed all these people and they're hired to protect us. Although some of the names were familiar, it's almost like the wall grabs you. After the wall touched me, I tried to leave the wall here versus taking the wall with me.
For some, it's hard to carry around a baggage of intolerance, filled with disappointment, rage, and loss. But this explosion of expression is about more than the injustices of yesterday. These murals, as they march through our nation's capital, remind us that we can move forward.
I think humans have evolved enough where we can look past something so trivial as race, color, to determine whether or not a person deserves to live.
I'm Jay Corbin.
You know, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. That's all we can be at this point is hopeful, right? I'm hopeful.
For ABC 7 News.